Hi everyone, thanks for coming. If you're concerned about the audio, we haven't got audio in the room, this is just for the video recording that we're doing. So thanks so much for coming. It's very exciting to see everyone. I feel very flattered that everyone wants to give up very busy mornings for this. This is the second of our events for women in crypto for boards. So just to give you a bit of background, C-Enable is an executive search firm and talent consultancy business working in crypto. And we work at C-level, board level, and one below C-level. We're part of a group which has worked across sectors. And we came across this crypto industry only 2 years ago. So we're very new, much newer than most of you are. And we have hosted events and addressed diversity and lack of women at a senior level in other industries. And then coming into the crypto industry, although there's not much data to judge exactly what the ratios are, it seems sort of underserved more than most, I would say. And so I've got a personal passion. I've got 2 sisters, and I had a very sexist father. From a personal point of view, it was very distressing how he treated my mum and my sisters. But also I saw that in business as well. I mean, this was the 80s, 70s, different time, but still, that gave me a kind of interest in this area. And I think the point that we'll talk about maybe more so is that we can actually improve the performance, commercial profitability, and governance, and maybe other aspects for businesses. So being involved in talent, we're here to, C-Enable's here to improve the industry with good talent that's retained and paid in the right way and involved in the right way. But it's a good opportunity for us to look at the disparity of women in organizations per se, but starting at board level seems to be quite a good way to start, given that they're going to be more visible. We'll start in a few minutes. So the panel is here. They'll introduce themselves in a second. I'm going to direct questions at the panel, but feel free to put up your hand, and we've got Ruth, my colleague's got another microphone. Please wait for the microphone to get to you, because we do need it for the video. And then you'll have the chance to ask questions to the panel as well. Ollie's got to leave shortly after 10, but the rest of the panel will be here till 11. And then we've got some networking, which we'd love you to stay for. I know some of you got to go. We've been quite greedy with your time, and that will go on till 12, and then we're stopping at 12. Just to say the next event, just so you can get it in your diary early, we'll be sending you a follow-up, is quite easy to remember. It's on the 24th as well. It's July the 24th in London. It probably won't be at this venue. We're hoping that the event will be bigger still, so we'll need another venue, but it'll be Central London on July the 24th, and we'll be sending you a follow-up with that. And we'll also be sending you a group photograph, which we'll do at the end. If everyone could stay at the end of the session for, even if you've got to go, we'll do the group photograph before you go, if we can, please. And we'll be sending you that afterwards as well. So without further ado, I'd like to just start by asking you to introduce yourselves, if that's okay. we'll start that way. Okay, with Jeanette then.
Okay, well, good morning. Thank you for having me. I feel quite honored, actually, to be telling these other individuals. And a lot of women I know in the room who are leaders in the industry as well. I would say my position on boards has been newer, I would say in the last 4 to 5 years, but came from traditional finance, private equity, private wealth, moved into crypto, Web3, digital assets, 2014, so it's been 10 years now, which if anyone in the industry knows, 1 year in crypto is like dog years. So I always joke with people nowadays, I'm like a fossil in the industry, but because of that, I'm able to instill like my experience in it and seeing the growth. American originally, lived in Singapore for 6 years, now in the UK for 3.5 years, and love it in Europe. And I think it's the best place to be located geographically to operate on a global scale. So I advise companies from Asia all the way through to the US. Thank you.
Okay, we'll carry on this way, and then we'll introduce you at the end, Hemilly, if that's just give you time to catch your breath. Sure.
Yes, so thank you so much, Tim, for inviting me once again. We've been discussing about this event from the very start. So I have a very long career in banking, and I'm now the CEO of the International Banking Federation, headquartered here in London. But I also have a passion for gender equality, just as yourself, Tim. And so for more than 25 years, I've been working and contributing and so also volunteering to move the needle in terms of gender equality. And now I'm the chair of European Women on Boards. So please feel free to connect on LinkedIn, because in my other life, I advocate for more women on boards across Europe, and we have now the directive that means that we will have 40% women in all boards of all stock listed companies. So feel free to connect if you want to know more. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rossiello. I'm the founder of BitPesa and the founder and CEO now of As a Finance. We were the first crypto exchange run by females ever in 2013 in Nairobi, and we were the first all-female team for a long time. My goal in life is to raise the economic power of females on planet Earth, and I worked a lot in microfinance after I left banking across the continent, and now we have a 300-person team and half are females, and we work really hard to ensure that decision-making power and everything is equitable across our business. I speak a lot publicly on this, and I get a lot of non-likes for everything that I say, but who cares? I'm pretty shameless about believing in quotas and talking about that. And when I did a board search a few years ago, I used a fancy London firm, not yours, and they tried to get me a female chair, and eventually we ended up placing a male chair. And even I, with my big loud voice, agreed. And he quickly left, and now we have a female chair who's incredible. But it just shows that what you're up against when you want to do something like this. And I've had a lot of male founders in the space come to me over the years to say, well, we tried and we gave up. So I love every effort in this endeavor, and it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle, but what the heck.
Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth. Ollie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Oliver Tonkin. I'm a co-founder and CEO of BCB Group, which is a large infrastructure provider to the crypto industry, both in UK and Europe and beyond. I think some of your experiences do kind of resonate with me as well in terms of your sort of younger years. We're fortunate enough at BCB to actually have board representation on our regulated entity in the UK and also in France as well. We've got a female member of our supervisory board of our French EMI business. We also have a search on for a NED right now, and I would very much like it to be a woman. So if anyone's interested, let me know. But yeah, that's me.
Oh, we have the same shareholder.
We do. That's right. We do. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thanks for the introductions. Hemilly?
Yes. Hello. I'm Hemilly Rodrigues, the Bit Blonde, most known as a crypto influencer. I started in Forex actually. I did a course in London, and I ended up in crypto. So I did crypto trading from Forex trading. So I started to influence in the crypto space. And currently, I'm a CEO and founder of a Web3 agency. So we empower growth pretty much from development to go-to-market strategies. And I just want to help women in the industry. That's pretty much it.
No, thanks very much. Okay, well, I mean, just to start off, I mean, as I said, there's no data. I mean, most crypto companies are private, so it's hard to get data. Something that we are hoping to change during the course of this year and beyond. But I don't know who wants to go first, but I'm kind of interested in your opinion as to why crypto particularly, maybe not more than every single other industry, but seemingly so, or on a par, why crypto in particular has a disparity of women at a senior level and on boards. I don't know who wants to. Yeah.
Well, first, a good chunk of crypto is not interested in human governance. So already we have less board seats available, number one. And I think a lot of young crypto companies, especially in the last 4 years, maybe not 10 years ago, are interested in transitioning to non-human governance. So at that time, they're like, why would we bother? Let's start with our founders, and our founders can govern, and then we can get there. So that's like a gigantic chunk of the crypto industry. And then we have other like financial institutions that are licensed and regulated that from the beginning need to have governance. We're licensed by the FCA, we're licensed by the Bank of Spain and 6 other regulators in Africa. From day one, we have to have a different governance structure. So I think, number one, the industry is bifurcated. And then in the industry that needs to have licensing, most people want a license regulated influencer. So if I'm looking for someone to be on my board, I'm looking for somebody who understands the regulator. So we have to go and change the regulators. That's number one. And number two, I don't have that many independent board seats. I have my lovely shareholders at SBI or DCG or Pantera who are on my board, and I had a petition for them to move off the board and get an independent. So I think already, number one, we're starting out with very fewer board seats available than you would in another industry.
Yeah, very good points. Jeanette?
Yes, so I think we combine a couple of things, and that makes that it is even worse in crypto. So you have already the technology part, and we know that we have less women in tech, so that's one. First, second, crypto is a quite new space, still quite a new space. So we know that if we look at startups, if you look at young entrepreneurs, you also have less women. And so you combine a couple of complications that makes that indeed, as you were rightly saying, there is not always the awareness that you really need a sound and a proper board, and that you need different skills around the table. And so I think it's a question of maturity, it's a question of evolution, but it's also a question of all of you here in the room making yourself more visible and actually bond between the offer and the demand. And I think that initiatives that you are taking today can play a role here.
Okay, thank you. And I definitely want to look at your last point, which is sort of how to address it from the other side with helping women become more visible and raising their profile. Because I think that certainly needs to be addressed, and also very difficult to know how to, as Elizabeth was saying, when there's not many board seats there anyway, and where can I get in? And some of them aren't publicised. With some firms, you don't even know who's on the board anyway, and how to get in there. So we could certainly address that. But I think first of all, it'd be good to look at how do we address this with the industry itself and with firms. I don't know if anyone's got any ideas. It's a big question and the most important question, I suppose, perhaps. But I don't know if anyone wants to talk about that.
Well, I was going to add on to her point, which is true, because, for instance, I would say I felt like we were getting more equality in the last few years, and then all of a sudden this year, I know everyone attended DAS in London, but I felt it was like 95, 98% male. And then we just returned from Dubai, same thing again. So I'm not sure, but it is, I guess it's a result of it being very tech heavy, the industry. I mean, we went from L1 to now there's L2s, and then there's, I don't even know how many levels of tech that's coming out. And majority of the developers are male. And I actually have to go to even some of the companies I'm advising going, do you have females on board? And they're like, oh yeah, we have one developer, it's female. And I said, no, that's not enough, right? So I'm not sure. It's going to take a while, but I think we're slowly moving in that direction. But it does start with it being a very tech-heavy industry, and then and so women have to be interested in that. And I think now there's younger programs where they're teaching girls to code and things like that, and that will slowly change.
Sorry, I have to, respectfully disagree because we have the same amount of female engineering students graduating. I think it's more that we're coming out of a bear cycle and women have less discretionary capital, and due to the fact that normally we have more people in the household we're responsible for, we have a less risk appetite for taking jobs with companies that might not be funded. So, the only reason I started my company was at the time my ex-husband had a World Bank job and I was able to do that. Very quickly we were successful and I made more money than him, but for the first year I would never have taken that leap if I didn't have that security. I think when you're coming out of two bear markets, a lot of women go to that place of security. So I would say it's more of a economic empowerment situation. I know that we have retention cycles every January, and we have one of the lowest attrition rates in the industry. We have like less than 2% of our company ever do attrition in Jan Feb. But during down cycles, we see working parents leave the most and get nervous, or they'll come to me and be like, Elizabeth, I love working for you, but So I think maybe it's also technology, but I think part of it is when you have an engineering student leaving, are they still looking for that Google salary? Or are they willing to take a leap forward? So what's the risk appetite? What's the level of economic empowerment? What's the level of economic security that they have? So I think there's a lot of systemic issues we have to address.
Well, I would say, the crypto industry does actually pay decently well. I think it's just about being acknowledged of those opportunities.
As long as they're in business.
Yeah. Fair point.
I think it does have an image problem a little bit as well, historically. Obviously there's been, I've been to conferences in sort of 2017, 2018 in this early days when it was very testosterone kind of fueled, some pretty kind of crazy stuff was going on. You've had some quite high profile, obviously scandals, collapses, the FTXs of this world. It doesn't really help the image, and I think a lot of people, whether they be men or women, go, I'm not sure I fancy that. So I think part of the challenge the industry has is to actually improve its image and make it acceptable. Culture is maybe a little bit as well. Again, it's shaking off those sort of early years of guys sort of wandering around,
Early
years. Well, it still happens now. Look at the Copper event with like naked women with sushi on them, and that kind of thing doesn't. I know that's an isolated example, but that kind of stuff doesn't really help.
Happens a lot.
It doesn't really help, and obviously it does put people off. So I think that is part of it.
I agree, and especially for senior women who have worked so hard,
correct, yeah.
Gotten through so many things,
And you get invited
finally
to an event,
get there,
you get
and you're
invited to
like,
an event, and there's a woman with sushi on. It's not great, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think also females have choice now because of the fact that we're having these new rules about putting more women on boards. The very few women who have 25, 30 years experience and have made a C-suite in the financial industry or something like that and are capable of getting there don't want to go to a high-risk sector.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point, and that kind of potentially makes it worse for the crypto industry, though, doesn't it? I suppose in terms of those, because most companies in the crypto industry aren't listed, are they? And does anyone else want to say anything?
Yeah, I think we have still this lack of awareness, in this space, because on the trading side and still in the financial side, we don't see that, that much of women still. But it is changing slowly. But I think we have to make more events and discussions about, and also educate company and firms why they should actually hire women, and kind of create a course when you hire people to transmit the company culture. Let's say you just got hired today and you have to do a course. Like the company should build a course to educate people actually. Yeah. I think that's going to be one of the solutions,
I think that's a good point. I think, and then having the proof and evidence. And the proof and evidence, I'm sort of turning to Hedwige here, because, we've only really got that from listed companies, as I understand it. Is that right? And I guess to give us a bit of guidance, but all of us here a bit of guidance, what can we do in a practical way to change things through data and evidence in the crypto industry, would you say?
Absolutely. So if I look at the UK, 10 years ago, you were in a dreadful situation everywhere. And so with targets, with reporting, now in the UK, in the listed companies, we have more than 40% women already. So in just 10 years, you can change it. Of course, crypto is moving very fast. So I would say there are two things that can help. First, we tend to always talk about crypto, and so we tend to always talk about the technology behind, and if you stick to that, it will not help. So I try to move from the technology to the use case, from the technology to what you are going to change in the world, what you are going to make better. And if you talk about the proposition, the value proposition, there you can actually attract more women. And second, if the business is going to be more mature and more successful and more sustainable, you will need at board level a much wider variety of skills and backgrounds. And there you enter the place where you can find and use a lot of women with a great, great background. So I would say, move from only looking at technology to the value proposition and the business case. And second, think about the business has to mature, so you need people around the table with background in marketing, reputation risk, like Ollie was saying, it's so important to have, and especially you have women there, in public relation, in lobbying, in advocacy, in reputation risk, in societal cases, in international development. And so if you look at the variety of skills, you will have great, great female profiles.
I really agree with that. And I think, we still have boards that are just run by VCs. And it's like, well, I'll stop there. Like you don't have any sort of varied skill set, and you have people who are like, run, hide when things get tough, or, go for it, who cares, with like insane risk profiles. So I think you don't have operators. And definitely in my market in Sub-Saharan Africa, we had a very well-funded company come into the space, and they exited the market and completely changed their business model 6 years in. And they had a pretty big market capture. And part of the reason was they couldn't handle the operations. They had teams falling apart. Their attrition rate was bonkers. They kept having performance issues, nothing to do with the technology, all to do with the operations. Linda Fain Levinson, who's our board chair, is incredible with operations. And when she comes in, she knows everybody in the team, how to do it. She's asked for reporting at a level that we never had before. And I think that was a game changer for us. So, I would definitely agree with you that we don't have that operational level on the board, maybe because so many VCs and companies that do well, I think, happen to have a VC on the board that is very good at operations, but it's rare.
I think, why is it a good thing to have women on boards? That's the question that we want to ask ourselves, right? So I think my perspective would be, for its own sake, maybe not, but I think what women, in my experience, this is just purely my experience, do bring is diversity of approach, of views, maybe a more nuanced attitude to risk as well, to maybe your average man in financial services. And I think that is extremely valuable. And I expect you would find that a lot of the scandals that have happened in the industry maybe wouldn't have happened if there'd been proper governance with that kind of nuanced approach to particularly risk. That would be my view.
And going back to you again, Hedwige, and then we'll come to you, thank you. And we will go to the audience in between, so do put your hand up if you want to ask a question. But with listed companies, obviously there are quotas, so that's something that everyone had to sort of aim for. But you talk about business cases. I mean, what data is there for listed companies in terms of sort of the business case for having women? Because we all anecdotally believe, that's why we're here, believe there should be more women and there should be a parity of women. And I think it's, I think a lot of the reasons seem obvious, but kind of to extend Ollie's point really, what actual evidence is there? Because that evidence is going to help us with this industry, which is 99% private companies, I guess.
Yes, so I gave the example last time at your first event, but I will give it again because it's such a compelling example. I represent the banking industry as well, worldwide. And so the European Banking Authority has published twice already a report on the most important banks in Europe, and they could evidence, so this is the regulator doing the research, they could evidence that banks with an all-male board, still exists, banks with an all-male board, were both less profitable and more risky. I repeat, less profitable and more risky. That's exactly what you would think that is impossible, and you would imagine that the shareholder is acting, which is not necessarily the case. So as the shareholders is not always acting, the supervisors comes in. And so diversity in boards, in bank boards, not only gender, but it's gender that's to start with, skills, background is now mandatory. It's one of the things that the regulator and supervisor will challenge when they come into your place. And it will soon be the case in crypto as well. And so I would say that indeed, that's a very compelling case. With more women, actually your business case improves. And there are numerous studies as well that have evidence that there is a stark correlation between female representation and attention to a better environmental score. Now think of it, crypto is one of the sectors that will be criticized, if not already, in terms of use of energy, use of power. If AI joins your industry, it will be even worse. So the awareness and the performance on environmental scores, so ESG, environmental, of course, social and governance, will be one of the key things that will make or break the success of crypto. So females, it's just a good thing. It's a sound thing because it's the majority of the talent nowadays. It's just common sense. But if you really need evidence, and the problem is, Tim, men never have to explain why it's a good thing for the company for them to be in a board. So, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, really good points. Okay, if we can go to, is it Kelly?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question or a comment. I was just thinking as you guys were saying, basically, I think all of these are valid points, but I do wonder around the education. At the end of the day, a lot of these decisions are driven by the senior leadership of an organization. And if you look at the percentage of senior executives at organizations, it definitely caters more towards the males than females. And as a result of that, we all have different biases and unconscious biases that play a role when you're thinking about how to diversify your, your staff, your resourcing, your people, et cetera. And I guess I just wonder, there's a lot of these stats, and we're all women, basically, a majority in the room. But at the same time, I do think still, maybe they don't realize it, but I do think there's so much education from a senior leadership perspective to still think about kind of their unconscious bias and not hire just because it's a boys' club and their buddies at the top. And I guess I just was wondering, because you do still see that a lot, especially in crypto as the market's growing up. And I guess you haven't talked too much about kind of the unconscious bias, bringing in like-minded people or people that look similar to you, et cetera. And I guess I just wanted to get other people's opinions about that, because I think the educational piece within the real decision makers at a firm, despite us all saying this, is very, very, very powerful. Of course, data is important too, but it's a mindset thing. And if you grow up in TradFi, for example, and you move to crypto, and you're a bit more old school, those things just are prevalent, right? And it's more of generational change maybe over time as well.
I think it's still our generation, which is the saddest thing. Like, my peers are saying these things to me, like, hey, Elizabeth, can you believe? I'm like, guys, I'm female, and you just said that to me. So it still happens today. Last week it happened. I mean, people are like, oh, it's over, repost that, it's just older people. To be fair, Sokjen, one of the C-suites, came to me and said, oh, yeah, vous êtes les femmes now, sur le panel. Like, you're the women on the panel today. And I was like, thanks,
how
buddy.
Nice.
And so I mean, it's everywhere. Unless we go back to reception class or kindergarten and we start everybody in Montessori or something, I think the only answer right now is quotas. And like, you know what? Are you going to go there and change everybody's DNA and go back, or are you going to be like, let's start with a quota? And then that becomes the behavior. It's annoying in the beginning, I feel, and like I know it's a very contentious issue, but like you force it in, and then people understand it. It's almost impossible, I feel, and I've been working on the African continent. I've been listening to VCs tell me what they think about Africa for 10 years. It's impossible to change their mind in a short period of time. I think we have to go all the way back to the root. So if we force change in, I think then you just have females making decisions. And then, that seems to have worked for us. I mean, I don't know what a better option is. We've tried to do education. I've walked out of trainings from my shareholders who have had their whole portfolio there. And they've had 40 people, CEOs and founders, do one of these trainings like this. And as we walk to lunch, everybody just says something crazy. So, you know, I think like we can sit through more of these trainings, or we can push our way in, and then just that's what it is.
Do you think, do any of the panel think there's room for simultaneously for media and I don't know, events like this with more men, or with just men maybe, you know, but you know, an educational piece, you know, in terms of, you know, do you think that's a possibility of doing something like that with the industry?
Well, I was going to say on Elizabeth's earlier point as well, it's like, you know, women are more risk adverse, right? But I think that's where we do have to be a bit more bold, right? So as you helping place, you know, talent into jobs, I think women, like what they say is what they will deliver and execute on, where men will be like, I'm going to create like, you know, a rainbow for you, right? And so I think this is where women actually just have to step up, and other women have to empower each other as well, right? Because maybe there's companies that want women on the board, but they don't know who to reach out to, where to start. And so I think that's where we continue to empower each other and like, to, you know, recommend people to different companies.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody's got a question. The lady with the blonde hair there, Ruth. If that's, yeah. Yeah, Francis, sorry.
Yes, one of the things I would say is also if you are operating quotas, it's then when on the board that the power dynamics ensure that voices are heard, because there can be the formal versus informal power dynamics, and that can work on an SLT, a management team, it can work on a board. And one of the things I've, you know, transitioning from sort of traditional to crypto is seen the power of those informal networks are much stronger than in TradFi, because then they haven't yet been identified and beaten down. And so that's one of the thoughts for me. If you're going onto a board, it's really, are you the quota, the figurehead? When you're on the board, how will you actually, you know, how will your voice be heard? How will your value, you know, start to shift the company? And it could be a stressful place if that voice isn't heard and you have a role. One further thought I had was thinking about, you know, regulatory versus supervisory boards. When you do have actually a fiduciary responsibility in crypto, for, you know, there are some, you know, infrastructure issues operating in crypto. So audit firms, how many do you have to choose from in order to get your audits delivered correctly? Fewer. They're more costly. And so again, if you're on a regulatory board in crypto, it is a higher risk role and your voice might not be heard. And that for women is, you know, quite a sort of difficult place to be in.
Thank you for that. We're coming to the lady just 2 seats away from you in a second, but I don't know if anyone wants to come back to that first.
I would like to give a reply on 2 things that I heard here, which are so important. How to get influence in the board, and then second, how to address remarks or behavior that is not okay. I think in my experience as chair of European Women on Boards, what I really saw change is that women have, of course, talent. Sometimes what is missing or what is not clear from the start, it was not clear from the start for me, is how do you change your attitude and your gravitas when you really have that position in the boardroom? Because I made the mistake thinking I come here with my expertise and with my hard work, and then I will be heard. That's not how it works. So it is about influence, it's about creating allyship, it's about creating a majority. And that I learned being a lobbyist. But a lot of women are lobbyists, except not for their own career. And that is what I had to change in my mind, that actually it's not that they are bad guys, it's just that in the boardroom or in the executive committee, politics is a word that is on the table, and that you have to learn. It's not about being right, it's about being seen right by the room. So that's one thing, how to learn the lobbying for yourself.
But they have to be open to be influenced. From an open mind, you know, you're going in with an open mind, they have to be receptive.
But you can influence that. You can influence that. There are ways to influence that. And just talking about that, be more clear and candid amongst women, or with male allies can help. And then second, the Me Too movement. I really think that the importance cannot be overstated. Because as much as you can try to convince men that or women that some behavior is not acceptable, you will not convince everyone. And just the cash, just the reputation risk, the litigation risk helps you to stop it. And so for some you have to convince, and for some it's just useless. You say, it's up or out. I mean, this is not acceptable. If we see it again, you're out. And so it's just, you have to use the right arguments in the right situation.
I love what you said about the lobbying. I feel like a lot of the time I'll leave a room if it happens. I'm just like, I don't have the mental energy for this, or, you know, or they're like, okay, your 6 minutes as the woman is up, you know, and like you get that kind of vibe and you're like, I can't today, I have too many other, you don't want to fight anymore. But I think if you finally do make it on the board, and that coming in with the approach of this is chess, this is not people are going to automatically listen to me, you know. I think that's a really important thing. But I think also when you lobby for the board seat, when you said before about the decision makers, I think we don't understand sometimes how much men are around each other lobbying for those, showing off their power, you know. Maybe we need to spend more time in male spaces showing them how powerful we can be on the board. That's not really what I want to do in my free time sometimes, you know. It's like exhausting being out here already. So I think, you know, the board members that I have seen that are professional are constantly lobbying for themselves. So I think it's both, yeah.
Okay. We go to this lady here, yeah.
Yeah, so I had a question, maybe a bit of a comment. So by way of background, I've been a general counsel to a number of tech businesses looking to IPO, and that's a really interesting time because all of a sudden it's all about uplifting governance. But some of the use, and many of them actually cannot make the transition to sort of a NASDAQ set of requirements. But some of the sort of points made by the panel, really interesting, you know, women on boards, you know, when boards have women, they're more profitable, they take less risks. And yet for many crypto technology businesses, actually, you're not interested in profitability. You're actually interested in risk taking, right? And you know, your point about non-human governance, you're not interested in governance. So I guess one of my reflections maybe on, and even quotas, right? So what sets the quota requirement? So I guess maybe one of my observations is we are only talking about a solution as companies scale and head towards IPO. So what can we do about that interim period? Because really everything that's been described, it is only a fit for, companies that, you know, either their investors have told them put some women on your boards or have some independence, or, you know, the regulators are telling them that. And it sort of feels a bit sad actually that there's this big space before you get to scale when we aren't talking about a solution to add women to boards.
So are you saying then for those companies that aren't going to IPO, in the meantime, we just wait for them to evolve? And
Well, I'm saying it feels sad that maybe that's the conclusion, but you know, all the cases that we're making for women on boards, or even just more independence, seem to come with that big step to being a grown-up business, not in the interim.
Unless you go to the VCs and you tell them, who have, you know, inordinate amount of influence on them early days, and you tell the VCs, make sure these guys start having diverse thought from the beginning, or send them back to Montessori. You know, like the VC has to do that, or the VC itself has a female partner. I mean, how many more breakfast meetings do we need for that?
Yeah, or your funders say, we will not give you this big equity check without a guarantee that you'll only invest in certain types of businesses. So yeah, no, I agree, but it feels like that's a big space where there needs a fix.
I mean, I think there are tentative steps towards that. I mean, we've got VCs in our sort of investor pool, and we've got VCs on our holding company board. And certainly the vibe I get in crypto is, you know, post the various scandals that have happened, and it isn't, you know, whether it's outright fraud or collapses where there have been failures of governance, failures of risk management as well. You think of like the Celsius of this world, people like that, 3 Arrows, you know, they were failures of risk management. And so I think some VCs are, not all of them, but I think some of them are now more interested in, yeah, sure, everyone wants their kind of home run investment, right? Everyone wants their sort of, you know, 10x, 100x type investment. But they also don't necessarily be associated with like massive failures either, particularly where there's an element of kind of scandal to it. I think they are increasingly interested in what does your governments look like? What is that diversity of approach? Again, this is the point. It's not just about you've got to have excellent women on your board. I mean, that's one way of doing it. But my preferred approach is, do you have diversity of mentality, of approach, whether it's men, women, anything. It doesn't matter. And I think people are more interested in that than they once were. There's a long way to go, but there's definitely steps in that direction.
But do you think it's still a scale question? Because I think VCs reward risk-taking early on, because and as they should. Why can technology?
Well, they reward product market fit. That's what they reward. Do you have the ability to grow from nothing to execute? That's the point. So yes, of course, and as someone else said, I think you said, risk-taking generally is more of a male thing. It just is, and that's not necessarily right. But that's just kind of the way it is. But you get from 0 to 10. If you want to get to 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000, you can't just do that, and then because you might blow up. So I think there is some increasing approach to how are you not going to blow up. And that's where, as I said, that's where things like female repetition
But the question is the timing, only because there has been plenty of money till a couple of months ago, and then things can change very quickly. So I was also in a technology company, and they had huge growth plans. As long as the money was coming, you could take a lot of risks. And then all at once, the music stops. And then if you have businesses who are just loss-making, and the private equity says we have to choose between the 10, then who will they choose? So I think crypto has also been growing in a very specific environment. The question is, how long is this going to take on? And you will have a regulation, you will have different environment, you will have more competition. So it has been a little bit an artificial environment that was really, I would say, taking on those risk takers. But you have risk taking and then you have risk management, isn't it?
But this is my point around, I think the industry has changed now so that VCs are no longer willing to tolerate just writing massive checks and you burning the money. Those days are gone and they're not coming back.
Can we also separate risk-taking and hubris?
Yep.
I am a foreign exchange trader for African currencies. I have high risk profile.
As long as it's managed.
Exactly. But, and most of the women on my team run my trading and sales trading. So, I mean, we are risk takers. But again, can I take risk with the comfort that I'm not going to end up in poverty? Can I take a risk with it that I'm not going to end up jobless? I have more at stake as a female. If I make a mistake, I am held over the fire more than a man would be. And I have 3 kids. People already discriminate against me. So it is Darwinian. Women up here already have had to get through so much. So, the few risk takers up here probably are taking more risks, and they've taken risks to the level. So let's just be careful, I think, to say women are less risk averse. No, I think we're all born with the same. I think, are we in a position where we can explore our full risk potential?
Well, one thing I'll add to your question as well is, I think if we look at present day, though, we're in a much, much better position than we were 10 years ago. If you think about the technology industry, it was completely unregulated, zero, right? If you think about the early days. And now, there's VAR, MiCA, FCA, like everyone has this. Every bank is looking at the technology. And I think just going to the point of VCs, like the investors are looking at companies that are looking to get regulated in whichever jurisdictions they want to operate in, or they're partnering with people in order to get the licenses and regulations. So I think the days of the wild, wild west are slowly through every bear and bull market, we're weeding those companies out, and the companies that last. And I jokingly say to people when I meet companies, like, talk to me in 3 years. If you still exist, I may be interested, but if not, I don't have the time for this, right? So I think with regulations and compliance and actually, what I noticed personally, I don't know if anyone else notices, but most chief compliance and chief legal officers of a lot of crypto companies are actually women.
Yeah,
which
and
is
then
fantastic.
MLR officers
exactly.
here in the UK.
Exactly, so I think that's fantastic because that's actually what you need at the foundation for the company to actually thrive and operate.
And that's a growing area, isn't
Yeah.
it? That function's growing massively right now. So that's good. Okay. A question?
Yeah. So it was. I had one observation and one question, just kind of like hearing on all of the things that you've said. Number one was on quotas. I think that, in crypto, there's still not a lot of boards, as was mentioned, and people don't really hear about them. So we're talking a lot about the image of women, right? The image of the industry. So one thing, this is my observation, that I would love to hear your thoughts about it. That so I also recently came back from Dubai. There were a lot of conferences there, and all of the majority of panels were male. So one thing where I think could be interesting, you mentioned quotas, which is to have quotas on panels and see more women on stage, because there were 10,000 attendees to like the Tonkin 2049 conference. So that could be, I think, something that could be useful to actually get women to be more visible in the field, because there are really interesting women working in the field. I mean, present company included, right? So that would be like one observation. And my second one, winding back a bit when you were talking about lobbying for yourself as a woman with men, on board. I've worked mostly in all male teams my entire career. And I have, I think, a rather forceful personality overall. And still I find it sometimes challenging to get my point across or get it to be properly, like my intention across, and because then I could be interpreted as, if I speak too forcefully, I'm interpreted as, excuse my French, but a bitch, or this. So do you have any like insights or advice or anything like that you could share on how could you more effectively lobby yourself as a woman?
I would like to start, if I may. The shift that I had to make in my own career was to actually, it's not you being there in your seat. So if you think only of you having to change something about yourself, I think you will work too hard and not be as efficient. Actually, you are part of a team. You are part of a play. You are part of a story. So it means that it is not about how to get your point across, it is about how to get in the dynamic of the discussion. And that means that you prepare the board discussion before the board takes place. And that is how I understood that it was so important to invest in relationships between the different people around the world. And so I'm sure that you are much better prepared than all the others. That's not something you should invest more. But 80% of my job now is building relationship, building common ground, building understanding in what others think. So if I want to be powerful and influential, it's not about me getting more intelligent or preparing, it's about understanding what the position is of the different people in the room. And so it's a different world you're entering. And if you want to get your point across, you need others to buy in what you say. You need to tap into what you like about the others. So it is about getting that decision-making around the room. And so that you can learn, you can certainly think about it, but it means that in your time management, you really have to take in a huge percentage in building the relationship and preparing the decision.
That's very interesting. Thank you.
This is what Linda said to me. She's like, less slides, more talking to everybody before the meeting. And I was like, what? Do less homework, talk more? It's not what we learn as girls, to be perfect and study and perform and learn your lesson. We don't learn that. So it's something to unlearn.
Okay, a few questions coming. Yes.
I actually would like to take it one step back, please. Please allow me. I think that we're talking in an industry which is not yet clearly an industry. I'd like to say that the challenge is that many a time those are projects, and people are looking for advisory roles which are not really board roles. And I think that there is a need for companies to define real board roles. I've been in both sides, and when you have a real board role, you're looking at board papers, you're helping the business make decisions, you're having finance that you're looking at, and those are very key. And also sometimes they are decisions. Last year, was part of an organization who decided to do a wind down after their investors, which were the big banks, decided they didn't want to have that. So those are very key business lessons. And I think that the challenge that we have in crypto right now is we mix projects with business. So having governance to run a business and also defining clearly what is the role of the person that you're bringing in on the board is very key, because you're asking them, this is not you're talking at least 10 hours a month that is going to have to be sometime in meetings, one-on-one with the CEO or other members of the team. So I think that as women, we need to prepare each other for those kind of roles. Not going, I've had people come in and think that I can be, because I'm in the space, I can be their communication person or their marketing person. But that's not. I'm coming in from a finance world. We talked about the 25, 30 years. That's what I can bring. And I can also be, quote unquote, the bullshit factor of saying, is this solution which has been built going to actually do what we intend to? And are we going to be safe from the regulatory lens? So I think we are moving, someone said it, we are becoming more mature. And I think it's almost what is using cryptography rather than crypto, because you could be using some sort of crypto or you can be using the technology to meet a business requirement. So those are, to me, key aspects that we need to start looking at and defining real board roles, not an advisory role.
It's interesting, yeah.
Okay. Does anyone want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think we need to keep a balance because, not everybody is super tough, but not everybody is so sweet. So I think, unfortunately, I had to develop that. Especially, I did a trading course in a trading floor. They were all men. And I still face that every day with investor groups, everything. So it's not that you have to fake, but you need to understand the people and how you communicate with them, because some guys are extremely stupid and some people are very, very friendly. So it's tough to be a woman. It's like you don't say to a mango tree, like, hello, I'm a mango tree. Okay, so I'm trying to explain in a way that soon we don't have to say, hi, I'm women in business, I'm women in tech, because you can see I'm a woman, So you have to kind of play with different groups and different places. Unfortunately, I had to develop that. And yeah, you need to keep a balance, not too tough, not too sweet. It's pretty challenging still, yeah.
Interesting point. Okay, if we can go to the lady there, yeah. Just wait till the microphone gets to you, please.
Thanks very much. Thank you. It's a very interesting conversation. I totally agree with you when you say there are not many boards and they are looking for advisory roles. I'm a lawyer by profession and I'm part of Level 39 as well, where I mentor startups. I see a lot of where they need people in advisory capacity and not in board. To have an influence is, I think you need to have a more well-rounded experience and overview, more for women, I think, not for men. Men can be listened to and have their influence far more easier than women. I advise a lot of boards as well. And the only way I can influence them is when I have a more well-rounded view. And I need to know everything about the business. I'm a lawyer, I know nothing about the accounting, but I have to learn about that as well, financial statements as well. So I think it is a lot more harder for women. But this is doable. But I think life is a lot harder for women anyway, full stop. So not just on the boards. And we are quite adept at getting through it. You mentioned a very good point, visibility and use-based case. What's the best way to be visible and be visible effectively? And when you say use case, is there any particular skill set you need to show you're more useful? What you bring to the table is a lot more useful than the men's club.
I would like to start, if I may. There are two things you can do that are super easy. You can just do it in a few minutes. In your LinkedIn, just below your name, you start by saying the next role you have in mind. So it can be strategic advisor, that for sure you can do, or board advisor, whatever, or board member. If you have already board mandate, put that, and chair, whatever. So the job you want next, you put right under your name. You write your skills, key industry. And then in the about section, you start how I contribute to companies is. So you just give your elevator pitch, not the past. I'm not interested in your past. What can you contribute in my company tomorrow? So how I contribute to, and if you have different roles, you can have different paragraphs. But tell me, for what I can call you.
I love that.
Sorry.
Yes, hi, Isabel, and I'd like to pick up on a couple of points. Really interesting discussion, and I think it's really obvious what there's so many different aspects we need to address. Just one thing on your comment on quotas, fully agree. We've seen in traditional finance, unless it's enforced, it's not going to happen. It's not the education, it's not the best efforts. We just need to get in there. But of course, that comes to your point, well, is it actually a proper board role? I think on the visibility and on the the image of the industry, my question to the panel is, how do you think we can use the media to our advantage? Because I still think this is a new industry. We have this opportunity. Been to so many conferences where you walk into the room and then you see like one other woman in the sea of like 300 men. What can we do to make this attractive? What can we do to have young girls looking at this thinking, this is really cool, I want to be part of this? And I think that the media, traditional social media, whatever, can play a big part of pushing us into that direction. I would love to hear your thoughts to the panel.
I think celebrate success. If there are people that are doing it and that are winning and are succeeding, celebrate. I mean, great example. They're a customer of ours. Rossiello, which is a Swedish exchange. Their CEO, and they're listed in Stockholm. Their CEO is a woman, Hemilly Moritz, and she's doing an amazing job. And they've just had an announcement, and they've exceeded their forecast and everything else. And she's extremely public about, this is me, this is what I do. Again, small sample size, but I mean that kind of thing. Be out there, be visible. If you're winning, don't be afraid to celebrate your success. And I think that it's a kind of a woman. Women are often quite kind of reticent about that. If they're sort of doing a great job, they're not always that keen to sort of, or certainly less than men maybe, just to say this is why I'm so great. Don't be afraid to do that.
Could I add just one more thing? And I fully agree, but also, can we say, and you think made a couple of comments like, who cares, who gives a shit, my time is too valuable, I don't want to play in these rules. I think that needs to be communicated. That is also okay. No.
I made it.
Yeah.
I'm the first.
that it's okay to be super successful, but also in a different way. I think this is what would really attract people. If I need to sort of mold myself to fit into the existing system, is that really attractive? I think more powerful voices out there saying, no, look, this is great. We're doing business. We're for real, but in a different way.
I think also I'm going to a Bank of Ghana, a very big conference, the Singapore Monetary Authority, the Bank of Ghana. It's a very key thing, a lot of government in a few weeks. And they're like, Elizabeth, you can be on the Women in FinTech thing at 6:30 when everybody else is at cocktails. And I'm like, And I called, I petitioned, I had my PA call, I had the head of Ghana call. I worked the network like I've never worked before, and I was like, put me on the stage with the other 3 main payment companies. And everybody's like, this freckle-faced girl won't leave us alone. But I was insistent because I've spent 8 years on the Women in Crypto thing at the end of the day. And I'm like, get myself on the main stage. And I have to pump myself up, do some yoga for the dude that's gonna be like, oh, you're just here like that. But then, I come, I'm authentic, I perform, and that's what we can do. We can, if you have the energy, and it's not every day, push yourself into the main space as much as you can. Once you got the quota, take that quota ticket, go right onto that main stage, talk about it, and then maybe it's not every day we can do it, but we do a lot of if I see other women who are doing it, we pump each other up, we push each other up. I was at a thing with Louise Hill the other day from Go Henry, and it was like all these guys, we just made a little corner for ourselves, and then we became the corner to be in. And like that never used to happen for me, and that's happening now. And I'm glad Frank handed over the reins to the new CEO, you know, and like that was a great transition, and we've seen that in some other places as well. So I think, you know, protect your energy, put it in where you can, fight for the main spotlight when you have energy, save up your energy for that main spotlight.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to this woman wearing the black dress just here. Yep.
Thanks. Thank you so much. This has been super, super interesting. I think since you held the last one, Tim, there's been initiatives like Unman Your Panel that have come out where some of my male colleagues have signed a petition that they won't attend an all-male panel if there's not a female on the panel. So, you know, we've got things like that. Yeah, we've got feedback from DAS that it was like a sea full of men. You mentioned that there was just all-male panels in Tonkin 2049. So my question to the group is, how impactful are these sorts of initiatives? And have you seen any more things like this which work?
Money 2020 is always like, we need a woman. And I'd say most events, if I can't make it, and I'm like, can I have my colleague? He's actually lives in that country. They're like, no men. We need a woman. And you're kind of like, that sucks that you called me for that, but whatever. So I am seeing, I would say, all payments in fintech, big conferences, Elevandi, all the big conference organizers, they have the women mandate. I don't know if it's per panel, but it's definitely speakers. The crypto industry is run by God knows who for each of these events. So, you know, there's no standards. But I think for the mainstream fintech and payments, we have a huge change in the last few years.
So you can all put in LinkedIn speaker, just below your thing. And you have a feature in LinkedIn, I speak on. You can, I suppose, everyone in this room can say, I'm speaking on crypto, blah, 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 something more than crypto, but tell it, and you can search on LinkedIn. And in your about section, I'm speaking on. If you have a speaker's engagement, publish it. Come and see me. I mean, it's not about bragging, it's just about allowing everyone to listen to you. And then if you have, I'm sure Elizabeth is asked a lot to speak. If you can't make it, have always 3 women you can put forward. Yes. So I can help you. So I tell everyone, if you're looking for women, you don't find them, you call me, I will give you at least 3. And have those lists also yourself. If you can't make it, recommend another one.
And if your founder or C-suite is not female, but you are as capable, you should tell them that you could do a media training or whatever they need to hear, and then you're the speaker. And we have my co-founder Charlene was the speaker forever because she's better at it than me. And then, you know, my account manager happens to be an incredible speaker. So I send her to a lot of stuff. So it doesn't need to be the founder or C-suite as long as you're effective and you get your points across. So maybe you guys can, one thing you can do is petition your C-suite to be like, send me out as a speaker. And it has to be active. I have my PA and the marketing team contact events ahead of time, and that's what puts me out there so much.
Okay, great, okay, thank you.
Oh, hi. Nice to meet you guys. Okay, my name is Danica, and then I work as a journalist and editor in the fintech area. So as someone who in media area, so I have 2 questions for everybody and 1 answer for this lady. Yeah. So the question is, so okay, just take me as an example. I studied in media area for almost like 6 years because I graduated from like the major journalist, and then that's a bachelor degree, and then master degree for almost 2 years in media and communication. I think like my experience, my skills, and like my knowledge background is good enough to take a like position in like any company in the UK, but it's really hard to get a position, especially much like less opportunity than local. So I want to ask, as the founder or owner of a company, and then what do you think? What is the biggest concern for you to hire like people from different cultural backgrounds, and then what is the biggest benefit that you think like you can take to hire like people from different backgrounds?
Okay, great question. I don't know who wants to address that. Hemilly?
Yeah, well, if you want to get something, I think the best place would be LinkedIn. So you start working on your profile and joining groups. There is loads and loads of groups. I personally start with 0, and I've grown massively in a year as well, but I get what you're saying. It is a little bit tough to... It's not only for women. You got a lot of job positions on LinkedIn that will never be filled. They're just there for marketing as well. So don't feel that it's very, very into women, not really. Most companies, they want influencers on their company, but all the influencers are running their own companies. So all these positions are there for ages, mostly. So you kind of have to do your own research deeply into the positions, try to reach out to the team, and just be live on LinkedIn as much as you can. Twitter Spaces, like I know it's a little bit too much in crypto. I'm literally 24/7 in crypto. But joining these lives all the time, it will help you to get connected with other women as well. So I think definitely building a LinkedIn presence is very important.
Thanks. I'll take about. I know you want to make another comment, and thank you. I'll come back to you. But I'm conscious that Ollie, you need to go quite soon. Is there anything you want to say, just in closing?
The only thing I would say is, I mean, to the point the lady made in the background about advisory versus board, I mean that is important, because we mustn't forget, if you're on a board, there is liability that you take on. So I mean, no one wants to come on a board and have responsibility without power, right? You don't want that. That's not a good place to be. So I mean, make sure if anyone's contemplating it and do it, don't go into it unless you're absolutely clear that you're going to have that power, because you know, the last you want to be is on a board that kind of fails, and then all fingers are pointed at you. Whether you're man or woman, it's not a good place to be. That will be my only sort of
actually on that
general comment.
Due diligence. Do your due diligence. I always
and D&O insurance as well.
yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Come back to you, because I think you wanted to make a comment about that lady's comment. Sorry, Ruth.
Because as you mentioned, how like social media can do to make your things closer to like younger generations or being more visible. I think the SEO is a good way to like make your things visible, because as you mentioned, the younger generations or like someone who don't really know what you are doing and then what it is. So, you know, nowadays the media is different from the traditional way, because in the traditional way it's like one direction, and then what you want people to see, people will see that. But now it's totally different, because now like people can choose what they want to see, and then if they want to see your things, the only way is they have to research it. So if they don't research it, if they know nothing about it, and then your thing never can be like visible. So the only way is you can improve like your way to do more SEO to bring your things closer to the like audience, or like you find a proper way to make the audience to like involve themselves in it. Let's say, for example, like a game or anything. Let them like get benefit from it, and then they will know this is not something that far away from me. Yeah, that's my answer. Okay.
Thanks. I don't know if any of you want to come back on that. No. Okay. No, fine. And okay, just this lady here. Okay.
Hi, great panel. Thank you so much. I'm Kirsten Larsson. I'm a so I work at Polkadot, or Parity, which is the main contributor to Polkadot ecosystem. I have 2 observations and one question. So first of all, there is about 2% female founders in the crypto industry. That is unfortunate. Something that probably needs to change, because the pool of like board members are kind of typically, maybe they've been a founder previously or kind of in a C-suite position at least. So I think you kind of need to start on that side a bit. I wonder whether there is also a reason for this. So could be that with a NED, like a board position, you have legal responsibility. You know, you can be sued, you can be put in jail, etc. With a founder position, you have also responsibility. Like, is this daunting to many women in a largely unregulated space that crypto is still? Do you think that this is going to change? Like, are more women going to feel more confident as crypto get more and more regulatory clarity? And then when we know what the playing field looks like, then do you think that there are going to be a higher interest for women? But then also I think that the industry's kind of narrative and also reputation needs to change for women to become more interesting in this space. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of scandals, and I think that the industry really needs sort of like a bit of a revamp so my point is that I don't think there is like an educational issue. I think women understand, you know, just as well as men what this industry is and, you know, what kind of what it takes to get into it. But it's like a lower degree of interest because one, there is high risk, there is not clarity around the regulatory side. There is also not as clear benefits for women in that aspect because, so do you think that it's going to change as crypto gets more clarity on the regulatory side? Do you think that will lead to more women going into the space?
I think a lot of it stems from 2% of venture funding goes to female founders. Yeah. So I was lucky. I started in Kenya. We didn't need a lot of capital, and I had a seed, 50K to start. That was tiny, but it lasted us a long time, and I got a grant from the World Bank really early on from a female friend, you know? And you're at one of the other female-founded crypto places, so what was the journey like in the beginning? I don't think she needed a lot of cash in the beginning. So I think that you see the female-founded companies start where they either have not a lot of cash needed, and they don't need to raise, or they have immediate product market fit, so a lightning bolt, you know, or maybe in the fact of Judica, who started in New York with her husband, they had the Goldman pedigree that came in, you know, so I think funding is a big component. And like I said before, it's hard to take a jump without funding if you have a kid or, you know, not a kid, but you worked your butt off to be the lead in your engineering school and you fought to be the first female everywhere, are you really gonna go no salary? You know, so a lot of women, I think at that jump of where do I wanna start my career, you see a lot more 20-something graduate male decide to, you know, not generate an income and be a founder for a bit or find funding to start a seeded company than you do women. I think it really goes to that first couple of years when you talk about a founder. I was a founder at 30, a different situation, but again, you know, I think that was like a very unique situation. I don't think that's the normal founding situation.
Yeah, I guess the question is a bit like, you know, what kind of structures could be put in place for more females to be drawn to that challenge?
Seed funding for women.
But there are initiatives.
Yeah, there's a lot of initiatives now.
I was in Sweden the other day, and with their investment companies, they have targets. But they have targets for women, they have targets for different backgrounds, for women of color, for kind of projects. So they have targets, and they also check on performance. And that was a really nice look, because they could see that when you have you need to have a women on the presenters team. You need to have women in the selection processes. You need to have women in the advisory, and so they could evidence that this kind of diversity and performance criteria were going hand in hand, because the projects with a much diverser and a much more skilled presentation did better. And so there you have a very positive feedback loop. So I would say never stay on your own. Look for allies, look for specific funding situation. You have also Women in Venture Capital, very successful organization. Look for representation. So when we had not enough women on boards, we partnered with an organization here in the UK that has only women of color looking for board positions. And all at once I had hundreds of candidates that I could partner with. So bond events like this, but you have plenty of initiatives and just jump on the wagon.
And so maybe just to add, the UK government just announced 250 million for female founder businesses. So, you know, this is definitely an increasing area of interest even for government.
And also, I know a couple female-founded VCs. So if there's any women looking to found something, I'm happy to like connect you guys as well.
Yeah, because it obviously relates, as Elizabeth was saying, to the VCs, and they're mainly male.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Yeah. So there's a couple I know out of the U.S. All the founders are women, and they are looking to fund female founders. So.
And the crazy thing is, there's like 5 big VCs in London of the big ones that have female partners, and I think there was data done that those female partners are not investing in any more women than men. And I've heard the men in those VCs, see, I told you, it's not about that. I said, IC is all men, you know, like, so like if they're gonna present and get rejected, or maybe like they were hired with that bias in mind. So I totally agree, it has to start from the entire cycle.
Okay, yes.
Thanks so much. I just wanted to ask the panel about role models and how you feel about that. My background is that before I became a lawyer, I was an army officer, and I was very, very aware of kind of the pressure of having trailblazers in front of me, having really kind of led the way into the career. But then also one day my sergeant major said to me, do you realise that you're a role model for all of the young female soldiers? And at that point, I just thought, oh, shit, yes. Of course I am. And as if this job isn't difficult enough, now I have to think about that. So do you feel the pressure? How do we balance? You know, we know that you can only be what you can see. But also, is that just another thing that we're putting on women on boards, kind of almost, I don't want to say setting up to fail, but just another pressure, another thing which is going to take women out of this space?
No, but so go first.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the pressure, definitely, especially in my age, in Web3, I do. But I quite like it. You know, not everybody is in the same position, but I think things are changing. But it's definitely a pressure. But you are going to fail. That's what I'm going to tell you today. Like, if you want to change anything, be ready to fail. Like, I've done a couple of things that I'm not, you know, even going there. But you are going to fail every day in business. You are. And it's tough. You know, on the other side, it is really ugly. So be prepared. You're going to fail. And that's fine.
So I quite enjoy it because I missed it so much when I was younger that nothing could prevent me to take on this job, because I would have loved to have a role model which I didn't have. So that's one. Embrace it. Of course, it's something extra, but you get so much positive energy when you share some knowledge or experience, or when you share some of your failures. You get so much energy in the room. So that's one thing. But also try to get some energy, because if it's only draining you, it's not a good thing. And then second, please invite men to be role model, because men can be male allies and they love to be visible. That's not complicated. If you just ask a man to come on stage, they will too. It's the most easy question. But ask them to talk about their role, and as a parent and as a father. And I so much love that campaign that started in London this week saying, I'm parenting out loud, and it's men talking. And so it's men speaking about how they combine those two jobs. So, of course, be a role model, enjoy it, and let it give you positive energy, and invite male on stage to be a role model next to you.
Okay, just whilst we've got an interlude of hands going up, I'm happy to take more questions. I just came back to just a question selfishly for my own sake. Somebody talked about media, and we discussed that a little bit. But you know, there's lots of I guess lots of potential solutions, and maybe part of this is waiting for the industry to evolve. But we can be doing things proactively as well, I think, on the women's side, and addressing it with the industry and the firms side as well. But somebody made the point about, you know, this being a very kind of, well, you know, it's continually, perpetually a an exciting time for the industry is evolving, it's a month by month almost, and maturing, hopefully, but it is, and with sort of traditional finance at some point becoming completely much closer to crypto. It is sort of media friendly, but it's also kind of event friendly, and I suppose my question is, what specifically can we do, enable, and because there's lots of associations, and you all know some of these other women's associations as well as other more general associations. Has anyone got any sort of practical advice to us and to yourselves in terms of the mechanisms that we can we can sort of act on to become a sort of stronger force, so that we can address the industry as a whole. We can address firm by firm as well, but to address the industry as a whole. Yep.
First of all, this is the second event I've come to. I think is really great, and that you're doing a third one in July. For the next one, I think it could be really good to have more men maybe involved in the conversation. Already there was one more on the panel than last time, which I think was very useful. But having like more men from the industry, potentially even kind of screening them for men who work in, organizing crypto events or things like that, or in the media. So that way, men who would be essentially in a position to become allies to this network of women, and kind of promote all of these amazing women and what they do. And that way also allow women a channel to connect with these men as well. So that could be something, And that was like my first and biggest suggestion.
Genevieve?
I have done previously training for sitting on charity. And I think that what's missing is what are the roles that need to be part of a board? How do you go about, what is a governance process? Because we need to be very clear. Are we talking about advisory boards? Are we talking about operational boards? And what I heard is there is a missing link also in operation, but you don't know what you don't know. So having those kind of training processes would be great. You don't need to be a finance expert to be able to look at a balance sheet. Part of the board review is how's the bank account going? What are the AR? All those things, and being able to ask those questions is going to be key. And this is how we can prepare women. Because no matter what, if the company is a crypto company or a bank or any kind of thing, if you're going to be part of the board, you have certain fiduciary responsibility that you'll be asked to have. So how do we prepare women for those roles?
Okay, great, thank you. So I think we will finish a little bit earlier, because I think that gives you more room for networking and more time for networking. Hopefully you can stay for some networking. We'll do a group photo first. If there's any other sort of burning questions, please let me know. But just one final question that I want to ask is just going back to specifics about women raising their profile. A few things have already been mentioned, and Hedwige mentioned LinkedIn, which is very specific about putting in the future as well as the past, because the future is kind of more important in a way. And LinkedIn's, obviously for headhunters, it's we use it all the time, and we do pay attention to those things, and the speaker word that was mentioned as well. But has anyone else got any sort of specific advice in terms of how women, C-level women and below C-level, can raise their profile to be selected for boards?
So you can, in the About section, if you're not a board member yet, you can just say, I'm currently building up a board portfolio. That's always true. If it's true, that's always true. So you have to include board a couple of times, and then move from board career to board ready. So if you feel you're board ready, tell me. because it's about skills. And Geneviève said it so nicely. It's about all those different skills you need. You need something about marketing, about finance, about risk, about product development. So put that, explain to me and to all the people that would be interested to get to know you, what kind of things you contribute to the board. Just tell me, and then of course board CV. You can contact any of us to have examples. Board CV, one pager that really explain the skills, the industry, the geography, and the role that you have in mind, and you just explain in your career what is relevant to fill in those 4 boxes.
And I'll add, so I actually hate public speaking, actually. Even when you asked me, I actually didn't want to, but I knew there was some familiar faces. But what I will share is, I remember a few years back, like, you know, I've always been part of companies, whether big or small. And then one of my friends who's, you know, been in the industry quite a while, a male, actually said, Jeanette, stop. What are you doing to build your brand, to build Jeanette? And I said, no one's ever really asked me that. And at that moment, I pivoted to go, what value can I add to different companies? And how do I highlight that? And then from that point, things actually change. And so that's the advice I've given to a lot of my female friends. I'm like, instead of just building your company and their brand, build your own personal brand. And that's how you become more recognized in the industry. So I thought that was really valuable advice, and I hope you know, take what you may with that. But focus on building your own brand, because companies may change, companies may disappear. So, but if you build your own brand in the industry, that will remain.
Not to tell someone else's story, but I was with Katie Hahn when she was still working for the DA's office, and we were at an event, and she's like, I hired a consultant to build my brand. And then she got hired on Coinbase, and then eventually Andreessen Horowitz, and famously her own fund. But she took it as seriously as she takes everything else, which is dead serious. And she hired someone, you know, for that. So when you see these super high profile females, they didn't get there without intention and help. And, you know, so I think it's not that like we're not doing something right, it's, you know, was it a goal? Another thing is that I worked with some NGOs and some small charity boards, and I also did some, you know, short-term boards where I was like on an IC, an investment committee. So things like that can help build up your profile before you get your dream spot.
Yeah.
Hemilly.
Yeah, I would love to address that. It's all about providing value. So if anyone in the room needs help on changing the LinkedIn cover to short phrases or just highlighting what you do, just DM me on LinkedIn and I will be happy to help you under the agency for free, really, because I want to see women succeeding on this space.
Great, okay, well, thank you. I think we've got a sort of natural conclusion there. Some of you may be members of other associations. I'm particularly interested in talking to other sort of women's associations, but other associations in crypto. You know, I think by kind of linking up and sort of connecting with other groups will be kind of quite useful for us all, hopefully, in terms of this mission. So please do contact me if you've got ideas around that. I'd like to. I'm already in touch with Hedwige, who's we're potentially collaborating on a few things together. So that's exciting. I just want to say thank you for coming. Thanks for being so engaging and engaged, and for all your questions and points. What a great group. As I said, the next event's on July 24th. We'll be sending a follow-up to this with the video link and some clips. Please do follow us, CENABLE. Please also hand your badges back. The point of that is that we can use it for future events, even if you can't make the one in July. Hopefully you make the next one. So we've then got your name. We don't need to keep getting badges printed. And yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.